Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're diving into something really cool.
Uh,
Coming out of Japan, we're going to be talking about a biohybrid hand
okay.
that combines robotics with lab-grown human muscle tissue.
Wow.
Pretty wild stuff, right?
Yeah.
We've got some really interesting sources on this. It's like something straight out of science fiction.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, think about it. This
Yeah.
is the largest biohybrid hand of its kind. And it uses actual living muscle tissue for movement. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
mind-blowing.
I know. I was reading about this and I was like, wait a minute. They're actually doing this. It's incredible. And the way they created this muscle actuator is fascinating.
Right. Tell me about it.
They call it the sushi roll technique.
Yeah.
And
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about the sushi roll technique.
basically, they take these thin strands of human muscle tissue and bundle them together, kind of like you would a sushi roll.
Oh, I see. So it's like a layered structure.
Exactly. And that layered structure allows for strong contractions,
Mm.
mimicking how our own muscles work.
That's amazing. So they're essentially replicating the biological processes of human muscles in a lab.
It's really remarkable. And get this, it even gets tired after a while.
Really?
Well, yeah, it can only operate for about 10 minutes before needing an hour to recover. Like it needs a break.
Wow, that's so interesting. The fact that it exhibits muscle fatigue just like a real human hand, I mean, that shows how closely they've managed to replicate the biological
That's
processes.
incredible, right?
Yeah.
And this isn't just some cool gadget either. This biohybrid hand has real potential for research.
Oh, absolutely. This could be huge for studying human movement. And imagine the possibilities for drug testing. You could test the effects of medication on muscle tissue in a very controlled environment.
That's what I was thinking. It could revolutionize drug development. We also came across some info about an event in Japan called Bioeconomy Hub Japan 2025. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, Bioeconomy Hub Japan 2025. It's a big deal. They're focusing on planetary health, which is basically the idea of tackling global issues like sustainability and healthcare through innovations in the bioeconomy.
That's really interesting. And Japan seems to be positioning itself as a leader in this field.
They are. They're really pushing the boundaries in areas like biohybrid technology. And this event is a showcase for all of that.
So this biohybrid hand is kind of a symbol of Japan's ambitions in the bioeconomy.
Hmm.
It's just one example of the incredible work they're doing over there.
Absolutely. It's a really exciting time to be following these developments.
I agree. Well, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this as it all
Me
unfolds.
too. It'll be interesting to see where it all goes from here.
All right, so that's a quick overview of what you're diving into today. We're going to be taking a closer look at this biohybrid hand, the technology behind it, and what it all means for the future. So stick with us for more.
This is going to be good.
It is. All right, so let's dive in.
And you know what's fascinating to me is that Japan's vision for the bioeconomy goes beyond just technological advancement. They seem to have a real focus on addressing global challenges.
Yeah, that planetary health concept really stuck with me too. It's such a holistic approach,
Yeah.
recognizing that human health, environmental sustainability, and economic prosperity are all interconnected.
Exactly. And the bioeconomy plays a key role in achieving that by using biological resources to create more sustainable solutions.
It's like they're trying to lead by example, showing how these innovations can benefit both people and the planet.
Right. And it's not just about these big flashy projects either.
Oh, yeah. What else are they working on?
Well, one area they're focusing on is bio-based materials.
Right.
Like developing alternatives to traditional plastics.
Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more.
So these materials are biodegradable and made from renewable resources, so they have a much lower environmental impact.
That's a great example of how the bioeconomy can contribute to a more sustainable future.
And they're also doing some really innovative work in agricultural biotechnology.
What kind of stuff?
Well, they're developing new crop varieties that are more resistant to diseases and pests. They require less water and fertilizer, and they have higher yields.
So they're really thinking about the entire food production system and how to make it more sustainable.
Absolutely. And they're also looking at ways to use biotechnology to develop new sources of food,
Like what?
things like algae and insects, exploring alternative protein sources.
That's wild. It sounds like they're really pushing the boundaries and coming up with creative solutions to some of the world's biggest problems.
Yeah, they're definitely thinking outside the box. And another thing that's impressive is their focus on collaboration.
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
They're working with researchers and companies from all over the world, sharing knowledge and accelerating progress.
So this Bioeconomy Hub Japan 2025 event is probably going to be a huge gathering of experts.
It will be. It's a chance for Japan to showcase its leadership in the bioeconomy and inspire others to join them in this endeavor.
It sounds like it's going to be an amazing event. I wish we could go.
Me too. It would be incredible to see all the latest advancements firsthand.
Yeah. Well, maybe next time. All right, so all this talk about the bioeconomy and Japan's vision for the future is fascinating. But let's shift gears a bit and talk more about this biohybrid hand itself.
Sounds good.
While it's a remarkable achievement, I imagine there are still some big hurdles to overcome before these biohybrid limbs become widely available.
Oh, definitely. One of the biggest challenges, durability. Lab-grown muscle tissue is impressive, but it's still delicate compared to natural muscle.
So it's prone to damage.
Yeah, it can be susceptible to wear and tear.
So how are they addressing that?
Well, they're exploring a couple of promising avenues. One is developing new biomaterials that can act as a scaffold for the muscle tissue.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like providing extra support and strength.
Exactly. Imagine a sort of framework that integrates with the muscle, making it more robust.
Like reinforcing the muscle fibers with a built-in support structure.
Right. The other approach is to enhance the muscle's natural regenerative abilities.
So if they can make the muscle tissue repair itself more effectively, that would increase the lifespan of these biohybrid limbs.
Exactly. And there's a lot of exciting research happening on both fronts.
It's amazing to think how far we've come with this technology.
It really is. And it's not just about durability either. Scientists are also working on improving the sensitivity and responsiveness of these biohybrid limbs.
So it's about more than just raw strength. It's about finesse and control, too.
Exactly. The goal is to create biohybrid limbs that can mimic the subtle nuances of human movement, so the user has a more natural and intuitive experience.
It's mind-blowing to think how this technology could transform the lives of amputees, giving them back a level of dexterity and control they may have thought was lost forever.
It really is. It speaks to the power of human ingenuity and our drive to push the boundaries of what's possible.
And it's all happening within this fascinating cultural context in Japan.
Right. Japan has this long and rich history of robotics and automation.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, this biohybrid hand feels like a natural evolution of that tradition.
It's like they're blending their technological expertise with a deep understanding of the relationship between humans and machines.
And that's what makes this so captivating. It's not just about the science, but also how that science is being influenced by cultural values and a unique vision for the future.
It's been a really eye-opening journey so far, exploring the world of biohybrid technology in Japan.
I agree. It's such a fascinating field with so much potential to improve lives and make a positive impact on the world.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, there's one more thing I want to touch on. With all this talk about merging human tissue with machines, we can't ignore the ethical implications.
You're absolutely right. We have to be mindful of those as well.
I mean, think about it. If we can create biohybrid hands that are stronger and more dexterous than natural hands, where do we draw the line?
Exactly. It's a slippery slope. We could see a future where people choose biohybrid enhancements not for medical reasons, but to gain an advantage in certain areas.
And that raises all sorts of questions about fairness and accessibility.
It does. And what about the potential for these biohybrid limbs to be hacked or controlled by someone else? Security and privacy are huge concerns when you're talking about technology integrated with the human body.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. These ethical considerations are complex and there are no easy answers. But these are exactly the kind of conversations we need to be having as this technology continues to develop.
I agree. We need open and honest dialogue involving scientists, ethicists, policymakers, and the public to figure out how to navigate this uncharted territory.
Exactly. We need a collaborative approach to make sure these advancements are used responsibly and ethically.
So we've been talking about all the amazing potential of this biohybrid hand.
Yeah.
But, it also raises some pretty profound ethical questions, like where do we draw the line between human and machine?
It's a big question, and it's one we need to be thinking about carefully, especially as this technology continues to advance.
For sure. I mean, one area that comes to mind is enhancement. If we can create biohybrid hands that are stronger and more dexterous than natural hands, where do we stop? Could we see a future where people opt for biohybrid enhancements not because they need them, but because they want a competitive edge?
It's definitely a possibility, and that raises all sorts of concerns about fairness and accessibility. Will these enhancements only be available to the wealthy? And what about the potential for coercion? Could people feel pressured to get these enhancements in order to keep up?
It's a slippery slope, right? And then there's the whole issue of security and privacy. I mean, what's to stop someone from hacking into these biohybrid limbs? or controlling them remotely.
It's a valid concern. We need to make sure these devices are secure and that people's data is protected.
It's a lot to think about, right? All these ethical considerations are complex, and there's no easy answers.
Yeah, it's not a simple issue, but it's one we need to be having these conversations now before this technology becomes even more widespread.
I agree. We need to involve everyone in this discussion. Scientists, ethicists, policymakers, the public. We all need to be thinking about the potential consequences of this technology and how to use it responsibly.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance, embracing the potential of this technology while also being mindful of the risks.
And for our listeners who are interested in learning more about these ethical questions, I highly recommend checking out Le Podcast de Philippe on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. He does a great job of exploring these topics in depth.
Yeah, he really delves into the intersection of science, technology, and society.
Mm.
So yeah, definitely check him out. Well, I think that wraps up our deep dive into Japan's groundbreaking biohybrid hand.
It's been a fascinating discussion.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground, from the science behind it to the potential benefits to the ethical challenges. It's clear that this technology has the power to reshape our world in some pretty profound ways.
And it's up to all of us to make sure that reshaping is for the better.
I agree. And that's something for all of us to think about. As always, we encourage you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to Le Podcast de Philippe on YouTube. Help him reach 1,000 subscribers today. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Deep Dive.